Namaste, namaskaram, vanakkam, namo namaha, jai Ganesha. Please visit our website at classicalyoga.org. And there's a donate button there, and please help us out. And please stand up for the Hindu, yoga, religious, spiritual, scientific, philosophical lifestyle. Today's podcast, a famous or infamous quotation: "East is east and west is west, and never the twain shall meet." This, of course, was quoted by Rudyard Kipling in the 1800s. And what's the meaning of this? Well, basically it means the difference between those who are steeped in an outer materialistic consciousness and those who have some measure of inner awakening, inner mystical understandings of life, i.e. the Hindus, or some of the Hindus. From a logical and rational viewpoint, of course, we could say that when our awareness, if you will, is totally absorbed in outer consciousness, if you will, things of the world, focusing on our body, our mind, our emotions, we necessarily are not that aware of perhaps inner experiences, intrinsic emotions and feelings. And vice versa, when we are deep in a reverie within, we're not that aware perhaps of our outer nature. A very vivid example of this is when one partakes of certain substances, for example, that cause one to deeply go within themselves. Various drugs, for example, even alcohol, obviously, nicotine. These can cause one's awareness to go deep within and temporarily forgetting the outer world. So in that sense, yes, the outer and the inner, never the twain shall meet. However, there may come a time when one seeks a balanced life between the two and learns a playful dance, if you will, between the outer and the inner. Not making hard separations between them, but learning to play with them. In other words, to go out and to go in. This is actually the circle of life itself. The out-breath and the in-breath. The waking, the sleeping. Eating, evacuating. We go out, we go in. Now, in contemporary societies, this concept of East and West is not so clearly delineated as it once was, for the world has become very cosmopolitan as people move all over the world. So therefore, again, when we look at these terms East and West, we're really talking about a purely outer sense of consciousness as opposed to an inner sense of consciousness and awareness. And yes, when we are stuck in the extremes of them, yes, then never the twain shall meet. However, the goal is eventually, obviously, to incorporate both of these outer and inner natures to live a balanced life. Now, when we are truly stuck, if you will, in a total outer consciousness, which in this equation would be the Western mindset, failing to appreciate the inner states of being at all, then we can do some horrific things and we can justify all manner of elitism, entitlement. Now, Rudyard Kipling was actually born in India, so by nationality he was an Indian. Interesting. But as a young child, his parents sent him to England to get true education. So apparently he maintained a dual citizenship, if you will. Eventually he came back to India. But Rudyard Kipling was fully on board with the colonial mindset of the British Raj. And he wrote several famous books, The Jungle Book, for example. And he had a true love, according to him, of India. But what did that mean? That's kind of like the love that someone has when they steal someone's mansion and live in there and think life is wonderful. because he was fully on board with being a colonizer. As George Orwell said of him, he was, quote, a jingo imperialist, end quote, and, quote, morally insensitive and aesthetically disgusting, end quote. So sadly, throughout history, those of an outer consciousness, which we could say is the Western mindset here, they have gone around the world basically with a Christian mindset, just feeling entitled to take whatever they wanted. I mean, we can see this from Columbus, when he encountered the Arawaks and the Caribs, and just simply took what he wanted. He was there for God and gold, in his words. And then when the invaders came to America and simply took everything from the indigenous, more Eastern mind, if you will, the inner mind of the Native American Indians. And this went on with the conquistadors and Christian missionaries right up to this very day. Those of a purely outer consciousness that just feel entitled to take from others. And then interesting, they criticize the caste system. And remember, caste is a Portuguese word which was imposed upon Indians and Hindus. Remember, not all Indians are Hindus. But remember, we also have to admonish Hindus, in this case, Indians, those from the East, for not standing up against these invaders, and even worse, capitulating to them. And these travesties, they're not dead. They go on and on and on. Look at the massive, spurious, phony yoga movement of today. It's the totally outer consciousness, Western mindset, that has totally stolen from the Eastern mindset, the intrinsic inner consciousness. Totally stolen the sacred Hindu teaching practices of yoga. And made mass commercial businesses out of them, with all kinds of brandings and labelings and merchandise. So what these modern so-called yogis love when they say they love yoga is they love the fact that they've actually stolen from an established religious tradition and quickly become a teacher and making money and having their studios and on and on. So what's not to love? Just like Rudyard Kipling, when he said he loved India, well, he loved his elevated position as a colonizer. He loved having, obviously, the Indians calling him Sahib and bowing to his every wish and being his servants. And perhaps many of these Britishers, had their way with the Indian girls. Do you know that if you were an Indian under the British Raj, you couldn't become an officer in the Indian Army? You couldn't belong to many Indian clubs, obviously run by the British. So, quote unquote, what's not to love? So it is a very real fact, and to many a very sad fact, that when West meets East, when the outer mind meets the inner mind, it's the outer mind that wins in this world. But it's interesting to quote something from the Christian Bible, if you will, and we can get some knowledge from different places, obviously. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. In other words, there is a mystical understanding that, this material world will eventually be won over by those of a strongly materialistic mindset. But this is only one half, if you will, of existence. This material existence. The other important part is obviously what happens when we leave planet Earth, the physical body, in the inner realms, the spirit realms. So let's conclude with something that was inspired by listening to a YouTube video entitled, "If You Know These Words, Your English is Excellent." So let's have some fun with words here. Wittingly or unwittingly, today's spurious non-Hindu yoga is ubiquitous. It is an egregious breach of ethics by callous, sanctimonious, and narcissistically trite, fad and financially motivated hucksters. Historically, pilfering from Hindus is nothing new. Are the Hindus simply hapless or lazy? L-A-Z-Y. Though the status quo is bleak and the task is daunting, rather than remaining distraught, be undaunted and adamant in standing up for the Hindu yoga dharma. In other words, knowingly or unknowingly, today's wittingly, unwittingly, today's spurious, phony, non-Hindu yoga is everywhere, ubiquitous. It is a serious, egregious breach of ethics by hardened, callous, morally superior, sanctimonious, and egocentric, narcissistically trite, those lacking in originality, fad and financially motivated hucksters, con men and women. Historically, pilfering, stealing, from the Hindus is nothing new. Are the Hindus simply hapless, unlucky, or lazy? Lose zero, yoga, etc., etc.? Though the status quo, the present situation, is rather dismal or bleak, and the task seems overwhelming, daunting, rather than remaining distraught, upset, be undaunted, be brave, and adamant, firm in resolve, in standing up for the Hindu yoga dharma. So when the West clashes with the East, or when the outer materialistically motivated mindset clashes with the inner mystical understanding of life, be undaunting, be adamant, be firm, and stand up. Hindus, just like Ganesha is, remember this primal Hindu deity. And remember the story of creation is that he stood up to protect his Mataji, Ma Parvati. And what happened? He lost his head. Meaning, yes, when you stand up, you will not always win. You will win and you will lose. And sometimes you lose big like Ganesha. But in the end, there's a higher goal that we're seeking. We're seeking for Atma Darshana Paramodharma, the realization of our Atmana, and this takes outer courage. Hence we look to our role models of Skanda Muruga and Hanuman and Krishna and Durga Ma to find that youthful, loving warrior inside. And so the dance of life goes on. So learn to play the games of life. Be a good sport. And in these highly motivated areas of life, seek win-win situations. It's got to be good for you. It's got to be good for me. This is when we then combine the best of the East and the best of the West. We combine the inner nature and the outer nature. Just like Ganesha with one foot down and one foot up. Prakriti Purusha. Live a balanced, a sattvic life. Knowing when to go out, knowing when to go in. As beautifully rhythmic as the breath. So let the East and the West meet in mutual respect. Let your outer nature and your inner nature balance. Let your left and your right brain balance. Your masculine nature and your feminine nature. Be positively outer, analytical, logical, rational, thinking area. Be positively inner. Be soft, intuitive, gentle, and creative. And avoid the unbalanced life of being hard and crude and mean and intolerant, the worst of the West. And avoid being too soft, too gentle, too tolerant, cold, indifferent, with erratic emotional highs and lows, the worst of the East. So East is East and West is West. Bringing them together is the best. Enjoy. The play, the dance, the drama. As Saiva Hindus sing Sada Lolahara Namah Shivaya, the truth, Sada, of the swing Lola of life, as we go from one extreme to the other. It's eventually Hara, destroying our ignorance, as we learn to live a sattvic or a balanced life. As the famous Mr. Miyagi said to Daniel's son, go find the balance. And learn to play nice, bala nice, balance. And then claim victory. Banzai! JJJ. Victory through peace. A peace which is won through strength and justice. Om, peace, peace, peace. Shanti, shanti, shanti. And here's an afterthought. When it comes to the words east and west, or E and W, or W and E, let's look at it this way. When east and west, or outer and inner, are pitted against each other, each one tries to win, which is a no-win situation. You may like to listen to our podcast on the 21 levels of human consciousness, wherein we quote Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and he recognizes that in low level, as he calls them, situations, games, etc., certain things in life, yes, there are winners and losers. But when it comes to deeper human encounters, we need to seek a win-win. So then instead of each one trying to win, EW, let's flip it around and WE, we. In other words, we together, win, win. And especially relevant to you Hindus out there, we need to see ourselves as a Hindu family, Saiva Vaishnava Shakti, the three. So let us live in harmony, dharma, and plant your yoga tree, Karma Bhakti Rajayani. This is Hindu Dharma. Om Shanti.